always believed confidence could fix anything. That night, as I slipped into my red dress, it wasn't just fabric, it was armor. The way it hugged my waist, the shimmer under the soft bedroom light, it made me feel alive again. For weeks, I'd been drowning in routine, deadlines, dishes, and a husband who barely looked up from his phone. But tonight I promised myself I'd change that. Daniel used to call red my power color. He said it made me impossible to ignore. Lately though, I could have walked past him in a wedding gown, and he wouldn't have noticed. But I thought maybe, just maybe, if I reminded him of who I was before life dulled me down, he'd remember too. The restaurant was small but beautiful. Dim lights, soft jazz, and a faint smell of roses that lingered in the air. I'd made the reservation a week ago, hoping it would feel like old times. I got there first, ordered his favorite wine, and waited. When Daniel finally arrived, 20 minutes late, he didn't even apologize. His eyes flicked up once, then back to his phone. "You look nice," he said flatly, sitting down. The words stung more than I expected. We used to talk about everything. Silly dreams, the future, what we'd name our kids. Now, silence filled every space between us. I tried to start small conversations, but they all fell flat. He smiled politely, not lovingly. His attention was somewhere else, with someone else. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed again. He excused himself, stepping outside to take the call. He stayed gone for nearly 10 minutes. When he came back, he was different. Distant, distracted, eyes unfocused. "Who was that?" I asked gently. "Work," he replied too quickly. I didn't argue. I just smiled, finished my drink, and told him I was tired. The car ride home was silent except for the rhythmic hum of the tires on the road. I stared out the window, watching streetlights blur past, wondering when love had turned into endurance. When we pulled into the driveway, Daniel didn't wait for me. He grabbed his briefcase and went straight inside. The front door clicked, leaving me standing in the driveway under the yellow porch light, still wrapped in that red dress that suddenly felt heavier than before. Inside, the house smelled faintly of vanilla candles. For a second I thought maybe he'd planned something, maybe I'd misread everything. But as I stepped further in, something felt wrong. The living room lights were dim, but there were 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, and one of them had lipstick on the rim. Not my shade. My breath caught. The air turned thick. I walked down the hallway quietly, the sound of my heels muffled by the rug. Daniel's office door was slightly open, and inside I could hear laughter, a woman's laugh, soft and teasing. Froze. I didn't need to look. My gut already knew. But I pushed the door open anyway. She was sitting on his desk, her hand brushing against his arm as she laughed again. Daniel's face went pale when he saw me. For a long second no one spoke. The silence was louder than any scream could have been. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in months. The man who once swore I was his world now looked like a stranger caught in his own lie. "Finally," I said quietly. "You left early for work again?" His mouth opened, but no words came. The woman slid off the desk, trying to fix her skirt, but I wasn't looking at her. My eyes stayed on him. The red dress suddenly didn't feel powerful anymore. It felt like a costume in a play I hadn't agreed to perform in. Without another word I turned and walked away. The sound of my heels echoed faintly down the hall as I walked away, each step slower than the last. My fingers trembled when I reached for the doorknob, but my mind was strangely calm. There are moments in life when pain becomes so sharp, so absolute, that it turns into silence. That was me then, hollow, steady, untouchable. Behind me I heard Daniel call my name, his voice breaking for the first time in months. I didn't turn around. He used to say my name like a promise. Now it just sounded like panic. Outside, the night air was cold enough to sting. I stood on the porch, breathing it in, watching the faint mist curl from my lips. The stars looked the same as they always did. Indifferent, distant. I used to imagine they were wishes waiting to come true. Tonight they just watched. My phone buzzed in my purse. A message from Daniel. "Please, let's talk." That word again. As if words could erase lipstick stains or rewrite months of neglect. I didn't answer. I walked to the edge of the driveway, my heels clicking against the concrete, and looked back at the house that had once been our dream. The lights in his office were still on. A shadow moved past the window. It wasn't heartbreak I felt, it was clarity. I drove aimlessly for an hour, the city lights blurring past, the red dress glowing faintly in the dashboard reflection. My mascara had smudged, but I didn't care. Somewhere between the empty roads and the radio humming soft blues, I realized something simple. I had spent years trying to be enough for someone who had already stopped seeing me. I ended up at a late-night diner Daniel and I used to go to after movies. The waitress recognized me, smiled and said, "Haven't seen you two in a while." I just nodded. I sat in the booth by the window and ordered coffee I didn't really want, watching strangers come and go. Couples laughed, friends chatted, people lived. And for the first time in a long while, I felt part of the world again, not trapped in someone else's indifference. By the time I got home, the house was dark except for the soft glow from the kitchen. Daniel was sitting at the table, hands folded, eyes red. The other woman was gone. He stood when he saw me. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "It was a mistake." I studied him, the man I had built a life around. His apology didn't feel real, it felt convenient. The kind people give when they're afraid of consequences, not because they regret the cause. "A mistake," I repeated, my voice steady. "How long has your mistake been happening?" He looked down, said nothing. He nodded. "That's what I thought." For a moment I wanted to scream, throw something, make him feel the storm that had been raging inside me for months. But then I realized, I didn't need to. He would have to live with himself, and that was punishment enough. "I wore this dress tonight," I said, glancing down, "because I wanted to feel beautiful again. But I didn't realize I'd end up feeling free." His eyes widened, maybe because he expected tears. Instead I smiled, a small, tired smile. "You lost me long before tonight, Daniel. You just didn't notice when it happened." I turned and walked upstairs. The closet was filled with clothes, but I didn't pack much. Just the essentials. My passport, my journal, the photo of my mother that had always sat by the window. I looked at my reflection one last time. The red dress still flawless, still glowing in the soft light. It didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like truth. When I left the house, dawn was breaking. The street was quiet, washed in pale gold light. I didn't know where I was going yet, but for the first time that didn't scare me. The next morning he called. Then he texted. Then he called again. I didn't answer any of them. Some goodbyes don't need words, they just need distance. Weeks later, I moved into a small apartment downtown. It wasn't much. Tiny kitchen, creaky floors, but it was mine. Every night I cooked dinner for one, played soft music, and slowly learned the sound of peace. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the mirror. The same woman, same red dress, but someone new inside it. I still wear it sometimes, not to feel untouchable, but to remind myself of the night I finally stopped trying to be seen by someone blind. And every time I do, I smile, because the shock that waited at home that night didn't just break me, freed me.